I was asked to share a little bit of the Baltic experience, of our way of state building and nation building and identity building, and maybe to share something that is worth sharing with you, and maybe also something to take notice of, because the Baltic states have very often been posed as role models for the post-Soviet space and the post-Soviet countries in their reform process, organizing state and organizing civil society. So I agree that this is rightly so. The Baltic states have been successful in finding their way. But, you know, as it is in life, there is always another side of the coin that you probably won't see, but something that we have to think of in order to secure the same values and security for our children in the future. So, as I see, you will have a lot of talk about the crisis in Europe and the crisis of values in Europe, so I will not go deep into this. But maybe the example of Estonia shows how a bigger crisis on international level also has an impact on small countries and a little bit more fragile societies and younger states like Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania. But I have chosen to talk about the identity formation of Estonia, and mainly through security prism, because security is my main area of research, and it has been for quite some years, in addition to organizing this conference where Lena has been participating. So I think that when you think of Estonia, I don't know, if I ask you, what does Estonia mean to you? I probably get as many answers as we have people in this room. Some would say that this is a Baltic country. Some would say that this is a success story of the post-Soviet space. Some would say that this is a paranoid small country full of Russophobes. Some would say that this is not a proper state at all. This has been the understanding of Russian government for years and years, which is why we don't actually have any relations. We have nice diplomatic relations, but not the actual relations. Some would say that this is the most modern and digitalized country in Europe and probably in the whole world. And I think that all these perceptions, in a way, are right, because we all build up some sort of ideas of what we want to see. Estonians themselves would say that we are a small Finno-Ugric people living on the shores of the Baltic Sea, and we have lived here for 5,000 years. We belong to the Western cultural space, and so on and so forth. And in order to support that, I will first give you a short background to what Estonia is. So Estonian national identity has been shaped mainly by two characteristics, to my mind. And this is, as the time is limited, my presentation is a very severe simplification of all the history and problems. But the first one is linguistic and cultural distinction, and the other one is identification through security needs. So when Estonia became independent in 1991, it almost immediately started to build up two identities. First, the national identity, and the second, the European identity. Fortunately, these processes were facilitated by previous experience and quite strong motivation. Something that has helped us on the way has been this very strong sense of self, which has developed a strong spirit of resistance to the foreign rule. As you may know, well, Estonian statehood is not a long one. Next year, 2018, we will celebrate 100th birthday of Estonia de jure. But Estonia de facto has existed only 46 years by now. So Estonia has been under foreign rule most of the time, 800 years. Most of this time we have been under German rule. We have had a history of official language of our state as German language for almost 700 years. And we have been under the rule of Sweden and Denmark and Poland and Tsarist Russia and the Soviet Empire. So basically all the great powers in our region have also been our rulers. And this is quite a mystery that a population that today has 1.2 million people has survived all these rulers, and actually we have still our culture, we have our literature, we have our state. So I think that this language has always been considered as a basis for Estonian national identity. The pagan culture and belief system were often used as tools of protest against the foreign rulers and helped to keep the identity alive. So although we were situating on the border of East and West, the national psyche has been shaped by the values and principles of Protestant West. So the second experience and the factor that has helped us on our way is the experience of independence. It was actually the turbulent events of the beginning of the 20th century, like the First World War and Russian Revolution, that led Estonia to its first period of independence that lasted for 22 years before the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed. And it was not a result of an agreement of the Europe's great powers. It was rather a coincidence of favorable factors, weakness of Russia and Germany after the First World War, the activities of Estonian national movement and the spread of Wilsonian concept of internationalism, nationalism and self-determination. It was not an easy time because Estonia didn't have any experience of self-government. We didn't have personnel, we didn't have human resources, we didn't have financial resources. But in a way, we managed to organize ourselves so that Estonia became a democratic country and quite a successful one. Our economy was one of the best ones in the region. We exported meat, dairy products to the UK, to Sweden, Finland. Our literature sort of blossomed. And I think that this experience was something that the Estonian nation was really longing for, because this was the memory of independence that kept us alive during the Soviet occupation. And the opportunity or possibility to talk our own version of history during the occupation. So this is the third factor, actually, that matters the most, I think, when it comes to the path to our independence today and why we were successful in that, is that the end of the Second World War and the following 50 years of Soviet occupation and oppressive and dramatic nationalist policies contributed to the survival of the spirit of freedom, the dream of independence. Anti-Soviet sentiment was relatively strong in the culture, literature, although delicately hidden. But this dissident movement was always present in Estonia. This contributed to the survival of political opposition. And actually it was thanks to the Estonian diaspora, the refugees who had ran away to Sweden, Germany, the US, Canada, who kept the Estonian state or Republic de jure alive, and who sort of represented our country in these states who did not recognize the Soviet annexation. So the continuity of Estonian Republic was very much carried on. And I think that these factors all together prepared us for taking the opportunity when it came at the end of 1980s. Very much for us thanks to Gorbachev, who did not mean that, but we were lucky that this opportunity came and we declared our independence 1991. Of course, after declaring the independence, security became the key issue, because Russia was clearly and still is today the main threat of insecurity in our region. It is not even something that I want to touch upon very deeply here. I don't want to talk about Russia, I want to talk about Estonia. But today I think Russia does not see the Baltic states as a target in itself. I don't think so. The game goes above our heads. The target is something else, the New World Order. We are just some sort of bargaining chips in this game. The first post-Soviet president of Estonia, Lennart Meri, said that security is like virginity. You're either a virgin or you're not. You either have security or you don't. This was the motto very much of 1990s. And after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Estonia had basically three different security options. One option that was discussed was the neutrality of Finnish style. The second option was a tight cooperation with CIS countries, and especially Russia. And the third option was the integration in the Western economic and security structures. Well, it became clear very early on that with no personnel, no resources, and non-existent self-defense capabilities, the only viable security option is to integrate with the West, because this was the only guarantee that we saw. At the time, Estonia had absolutely no membership perspective from neither of the organizations, not from the EU, not from NATO. And the main question was how to combine security and stability and the political reform, how to convince the West that we actually would be suitable members and partners at their table. I would like to mention two factors behind the relatively smooth and speedy reforms and national institution building process. First of them was rhetoric, right rhetoric of Estonian political establishment and also President Lennart Meri himself. They made it very clear in their public presentations that we are part of Europe and we share the same values. We are returning to our true space. It was not about the gains or losses, it was not about access to European funds that our political establishment was trying to sell to the public. It was sort of a very dignified discourse at that point of time. And the other factor that contributed to the success was the instant change of the political and bureaucratic establishments. All nomenclatura was thrown out, and young people were brought in. Those who were leading nationalist movements, plus all the ministries, were filled with very young people. I'm a product of these policies. I was 18 years old when I started working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was 19 when I was first sent to Estonian embassy in Norway and then to Stockholm. I think that it was that time when the first ambassador that I worked with came to us and said that, okay, now you're representing the Republic of Estonia. Your country is never better or worse than you are, because you are Estonia. From head to toe, you are exactly what the world sees Estonia, or what Estonia is. And I think that this was the first time I understood that now something has happened, that now something I have to start believing in what I'm doing. So it was blind hope and a lot of work. And today, 26 years later, Estonia is a member of the United Nations, European Union, NATO, OECD, Eurozone, Schengen, all possible regional organizations, part of all the most important international charters, and besides, probably the most digitalized country in the world. I mean, we have our e-government, something that is new and innovative still for most of other countries. So can we say today that we are secure? Or is our identity secure enough? I think that on the one hand, yes, we absolutely are secure. We are one of the most integrated countries in Europe. I think because of Russia's actions in Georgia and Ukraine, our allies and European partners have recognized our security concerns. But unfortunately, security has never ceased to be our main concern. And not only because of Russia. I mean, international security situation today is so complex and so complicated. So that these challenges are not only facing Estonia, but also the organizations we are seeking our security guarantees from. The stability of alliances and organizations where states seek their security guarantees depends on the equal commitments of all the allies, and fading commitments and national caveats set by other members and allies may themselves be a cause of instability and insecurity. So today, both NATO and the EU have been challenged by the lack of internal solidarity concerning financial crises or Russia's increasing aggression, war in Syria, unpredictability of Northern Korea, Brexit, unpredictability of President Trump. And all this combined with new threats like information war or cyber attacks. So what is my concern today? And I was talking that there is always the other side of the coin, is that we are far too much talking about security today. We are securitizing, if I use the Copenhagen School of Security expression, we are over-securitizing everything in our life. And this is very much present in Estonia as well. We do not talk about values anymore that made the self-determination and foundation of independence possible. It seems that the principles of European identity base more and more on external threats than internal solidarity. Securitization of more and more issues create fear, and populist rhetoric finds natural support. So we are basically dealing with the politics of exclusion on all levels. The evil other does not only live outside the borders, but also inside of the borders. And as this is a sort of a bigger crisis on an international level, then in Estonia it plays out in a different way. 2014, when Russia invaded eastern part of Ukraine with the help of the so-called Green Man, then all these theories started to come up about Estonia and Narva. Will Narva be next? Are Russians going to use the same scenarios in invading Estonia or Latvia, for that matter? And only then, I think, we started to think seriously about this Russian-speaking population that make up 26% of Estonia's population today. So 300,000 people out of 900,000 of Estonians are, let's say, ethnically non-Estonians. And we have to admit that we have not addressed the integration issue. And maybe it is a little bit too late, hopefully not, but dealing with societal cohesion 20 years too late is a problem. And I think that there was another issue when Estonian media handled this so-called crisis, and they also, instead of calming the public down, they created that kind of opposition or divide, so that you could read in every article that our Russian-speaking population could be a risk, could be a security risk. So we were, in a way, ourselves securitizing part of our population. And this was not a very wise thing to do if you want to integrate these people. I mean, this has been a failure of Estonian state, that we have not been able to win these people over to our side, that we have not been able to create the trust. But I hope we will do that now. So, over-securitization ultimately leads to self-occupation, in the sense that instead of opening up, we are closing up. Instead of encouraging free speech, we are dealing with self-censorship. The freedoms we took for granted after independence are no longer granted. And I think Estonian identity today has European look, but has national instincts. So we still have a long way to go. And we have to admit that the path that has taken us here won't take us any further.